Welcome to another episode of Finding Your Way in Real Estate Today. My name is Rachel Ann Howard, and I'll be sitting in for Remo today. And this is Beshka Fairbanks Hunt, one of the lending specialists at Spring Valley Bank. Welcome. Today we're going to do a follow-up discussion on construction, residential and commercial. And as someone that's somewhat new to the real estate field, I know I have a lot of questions regarding how to get started, what documents are necessary, what are the necessary steps to take. And I thought we could dive in a little further from, I guess, a newbie's perspective.
Okay.
As someone like me, not knowing too much about the process, and kind of get into that a little deeper.
Sounds great. So last week we talked a little bit about construction,
Yes.
Residential we focused on.
Yes.
But I know we had talked off camera a little bit about talking about commercial construction. That being something that once you've gotten a couple flips under your belt, a couple buy and holds, it's a great opportunity to kind of expand your portfolio a little bit. And strangely enough, folks don't realize that we can help with that. We can finance up to $5 million on those types of projects. So it's definitely something that we can do.
Okay,
So,
what would you say?
What were your questions? I'm sorry.
Well, I guess you had brought up an interesting point. We did focus a lot on residential last episode, and this week we're diving in a bit more into commercial. What would you feel is the biggest difference between the residential and the commercial? Would you say that one is more difficult to roll out than another, or do they both have their pros and cons, I would think?
I think that they both have their pros and cons. I kind of look at it so commercial, there's some not difficulty, but some confusion as far as semantics are concerned as to what exactly commercial is.
Yes.
And so commercial, from our perspective and from a real estate perspective, is anything over anything over 4 units.
Okay.
So when folks are starting to look into a larger apartment building, that would
I did not realize that. So it's
classifies.
over 4 units.
Anything over 4 units
Would be classified then as a commercial property.
Exactly. Anything under that, it would be residential. So it's 4 and under is residential. 5 and over would be commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And I could see that, obviously both would have their challenges, I'm sure,
Yes.
whether you're just doing a residential or a commercial. Now, would it be safe to say that, let's say, a mixed use property, such as something that has a retail or a shop position on the bottom with a living unit above, something like that, like around mixed use, would that kind of fall more into the commercial category as well?
It would fall definitely into the commercial category.
Okay.
And that simply because you've added the retail aspect.
Yes.
That's what kind of takes it over into the other realm.
Wonderful. And I know that Spring Valley Bank does finance for mixed use properties as well.
Yes. And actually that's what a lot of people who have buy and holds and they're looking to kind of expand their horizons and explore different options. A mixed use building is a really not easy, but it's a kind of a nice bridge into commercial.
Okay.
Exactly. Because that way it's, you can have a small number of residential units above or, in the building somewhere. And then you've got the potential for additional income coming in from a retail lease.
I see.
So
yes.
it kind of, it's an easy, I keep saying easy. It's a nice way to kind of expand your portfolio. And then of course, once you master that, then you can do larger, and you can we can do projects like warehouses and breweries and all kinds of things like that. But it's kind of like a nice segue, as you said, into the commercial realm.
Yes, and I remember from the last episode, you did mention the brewery that the gentleman that you were speaking with. Where was that located again? Do you recall offhand?
It is it's in Hamilton.
In Hamilton.
Yeah, the Spooky Nook area.
Oh, okay, okay. And did they just come across like a warehouse building or something that they were interested in? And
so it's very early in the planning stages.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But I know it has been put out there in the news realm that it's something that a large project that they're working on. So we are working on looking into how that will transpire.
and how
So
that
it's
will
kind of
play out,
exciting, actually. That whole entire area of Hamilton is kind of blossoming and burgeoning, and that they're hoping is going to be like a nice entertainment area to add to that spooky nook.
Yes, that area.
Yeah.
I know that it's been really transforming over the last few years. And
Yes.
I know too that Spring Valley Bank has financed quite a few fix and flip properties over in the Hamilton area as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of folks that we've worked with, and they've done beautiful work. One in particular, A&R House to Home, they did a wonderful job on all of their properties actually in Hamilton, and completely transformed them, taking them from something that you probably wouldn't even consider moving into to something where people are competing to get into. And because of the properties and the renovations they make, they just do beautiful work.
I think that's amazing. It's all it takes. I was just talking to somebody this morning, actually. All it takes is one pioneer, one
Yes.
person who's got the spirit to jump in, and it's like a fire. It just kind of boom, and
Yep.
it can really just
Like a
take an
domino
area
effect.
that's just exactly an area that was just kind of and turn it into something amazing.
So I mean, it is kind of true that an investment in real estate is an investment in your local communities.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's amazing how these areas that were once kind of dragging out are now thriving and getting that new life because of things like the fix and flips, the commercial properties and whatnot, kind of breathing new life in a community that was kind of stagnant for so long. So, well, suppose now I have a piece of land
Okay.
that I own, let's say from an inheritance, whatnot, and I would like to look into building construction on this site. What would be the steps that I would need to follow first?
Okay.
So I have this property, I'm ready to go, I'm interested in this, even though I'm a newbie,
Okay.
I'm not too familiar with the process. So I've got the property, where do I go from there?
So one thing I will say about newbies is if you are a newbie, that's fine. We are newbie friendly. However, it is good to have a team around you that knows exactly what they're doing. So your architect, your engineer, your builder, those peoples, if you're a newbie, that's fine, but they need to be pretty solid. And then there's a vetting. We would like to be involved in that vetting process so that we have a comfort level for your project, the scope of the
Yes.
project, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of an offshoot. But the land itself. So starting off with just you've got this land and you're like, hey, I want to put I don't know, an RV park. I don't know. I just threw
Yes.
something out there. A lot of the same things that we talked about last week apply. You would want to make sure that the land is in a situation that is good, that is going to be good land to build on.
Mhm.
Sometimes, you have land, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is flat enough to support a build. So
Okay.
you might have to do some work ahead of time to make sure that it's nice and flat so you can build a property.
Exactly.
On it.
That's a good point to consider, because that's something that I think a lot of people, they just see the land and they're like, oh, this is great, but you really don't know what the terrain actually is
Right.
until you're getting in there and having someone professional take a look. And
Right. And depending on where it is too, there could be some environmental aspects of
Okay.
it too. Like
Okay, yeah.
if it's near what am I trying to say? I know there's a newer term to say it other than a garbage dump.
Yes.
But I mean, if it's near that kind of a thing, you'd have to go through some extra steps to make sure that the land itself is able to support, people.
Exactly.
So those are things to consider with the land itself. But then once you've established kind of your network or your team, then it's pretty much kind of the same process. We would, other than the typical, so I'll break it into two categories. So for the person themselves that wants to get financed, it would be the same documents that we collect for just about every other type of loan that we do.
Okay.
So it would be 2 years of income tax returns,
Okay.
60 days of bank statements, 30 days of pay stubs. And when I say that, we are very, very, what am I trying to say? Self-employed friendly.
Friendly,
So
yes.
if you don't have pay stubs, that's fine. We can use your income tax returns. But if you do have a 9 to 5,
And
we
that's
would need to see that.
That's a good point to make, because I know a lot of people will try to get financing, and that's one of the big things that stops them from moving forward is, because they've recently changed a job within the last year, or that they are self-employed. So it's good to know that, Spring Valley Bank is available to work with those kind of folks, where other institutions,
Right.
if you don't take that little checkbox, you're out.
That's
So,
right. And a good portion, honestly, a good portion of the people that we do business with are self-employed.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we are, used to having to go off of, either alternate forms of, proving your income, or, your income tax returns will work as well. So, so I like to put that as a caveat out there. We are self-employed friendly. So
Yes.
and then the other thing, the third component, or the fourth component to your financial piece, would be if you are constructing under an LLC.
Okay.
We would just need a Secretary of State certificate of your LLC,
Yes.
along with an operating agreement. And it's also good to note that even if you are a sole member of the LLC, will still need an operating agreement. So,
Okay.
so that's the first piece. That's kind of the financial piece. And then, of course, depending on the type of project that you're working on, that you're putting up. So if it's it could be a number of things. It could be a bar. It could be an apartment building that's 5 units and above. It could be a light warehouse. It could be any number of things. So of course it would be different based on what type of business or what kind of commercial property you're putting up. But in general, we would need the plans. So
Yes.
just kind of an overview of what you're going to be doing. So the plans, and then the spec package. So it's everything that you're planning on doing and how much that's going to cost. We do cover, and this is in the same with the residential as well. We cover 100% of the hard cost, and that's the cost to build. We do cover some of the soft costs. It depends on subtypes of permitting. Some of that we will cover, but it just depends. Again, it's very project specific.
Exactly. Every project is different. Every situation is different. So
yes,
but what makes, I think, Spring Valley Bank very unique, in the fact that it recognizes the individual needs and unique circumstances, and not everyone is grouped into one
absolutely.
Approval box. It's based on the property itself, the individual, whether, like you said, it's an individual or an LLC. But it's nice to know that there's those options out there for those folks that otherwise wouldn't have been approved for financing.
Yes, I think that's one of the great things about doing business with Spring Valley Bank, is that we do. It's not one size fits all with us.
Exactly. Yes.
We look at a high level of you and your project. So it's not just you have to have this, and this. There are situations when we have the ability to, if it's a portfolio loan, if it's Spring Valley Bank specific loan, then we are able to kind of not bend the rules, but we can look at it in a different way. It's not cut and dry. Exactly. So we can, where you're lacking in one area, or there's, we can kind of work with you in that regard. So it's great. That's one of the great things about doing.
And as you said, with newbies, getting into something like this where you're not completely confident and sure and whatnot, with being able to kind of go in once you get started, you're right. It's like you're in it, and right from the first project whether that's something you want to do, or no, this is too much for me, or I don't have the time, whatever the reason may be.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that we've had a lot of folks start here as newbies, and now
really
they've really grown their portfolio.
Yes.
One of the gentlemen that we work with, his name's Dwayne Shear. He did a beautiful project, two residential, right out there in the Coleraine area around 275.
Okay.
And beautiful work. And he continues to grow his portfolio, throughout the greater Cincinnati area as well. And just starting out as, a newbie or someone new, and then you grow your portfolio. And the folks that we work with at Spring Valley Bank, we have long long-term relationships with.
Yes, we do.
And, you know, once they're finished with one project, boom, they're contacting us with the next one.
Yes.
So
I love the our saying that we don't have branches, we have roots.
yes.
And I really think that I see it on a daily basis where, you know, you start out as a newbie and then you end up being, I would say project after project. I really take pleasure in seeing people grow and expand and get the confidence under it. And it really, I have to say that it affects me as well. I mean, it's like, okay, and you see what's possible.
Exactly.
I
And
love
they're
it.
helping people. And I know from a marketing perspective with Spring Valley Bank, doing the flips of the week that we do and seeing the tremendous amount of work and effort that the folks we work with put into their properties and the improvements. In most cases, it's like night and day on a lot of these properties. And it's amazing what they do with it. And what's even more fascinating is to watch them grow. And, you know, where, you know, they start off with one project and then boom, you know, several months later, here's another one from them and so on and so on. And it's nice to have that community
Absolutely.
of investors with us that they know they can rely on us. And we love being able to help them and feature them in things like the Friday flip of the week or investment opportunities on our YouTube channels and things like that, to spread the word and let people know that you can do this. It is possible to do this if you've got the right mindset for one, and then you have a foundation, you know, a strong foundation such as with Spring Valley Bank to kind of help you get started and rolling.
Yes.
Okay, so with the paperwork now is done, I guess how long would I then have to wait to hear back on if I'm financed or whatnot?
So this process is a little bit different than you know, if it were a flip or buy and hold, where we would actually do the pre-approval piece ahead of time, and then you would bring the property to the table, and then it would kind of be like two pieces to the puzzle coming together. In this case, because, you know, it is a construction and it is you know, specific, it has certain needs, and based on what it is, we would really need to consider everything all at one time. I know Remo touched last week on, you know, it's going to be one of those types of situations where we would need all the information. So if you're kind of in a fact-finding mission and you're thinking about doing something, by all means, you know, reach out to us. And I mentioned as well, it's good to kind of start that conversation early. Then that way we can help as needed. But it really, the pedal to the metal kind of comes together when you have everything. So once you've already started working with your architect, you've already started, you know, the land itself is in build ready condition. You've got your spec, you've got your spec package together, you've got your plans together. That is kind of when we would kind of start the process. And it's again, it's because we're going to be looking at the project in its entirety. Yes. And we, you know, we're going to kind of be looking from a standpoint of, you know, making sure that you've got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed and all that good stuff, just to make sure that everything is where it should be. So basically, we're just kind of like, you know, it's very important to say that, yes, the relationship establishment is very important, but in these kinds of cases, it's a lot better to have everything all together at once. Yes. And so then you're actually presenting to us a live project plan that we can actually approve, other than when it's still kind of in its planning stages, it's so hypothetical, and it could be, we could do this, we might do that. And, you know, once you have everything together, you've decided you're going to move forward, that's when, you know, that's when a good, I mean, and let me say it one more time. It's, you know, the establishment of the relationship is kind of separate from the actual bringing the loan. It's the live loan to the table. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. Alrighty. I'm like, I think I'm confusing people.
Now, what would you say are the main differences if, let's say, I have my lot of land, and the foundation, the land itself is checked out, everything's okay. And I want to build, let's say, rather than a residential, let's say a commercial property. Let's say maybe a plaza or 3 storefronts.
Okay.
Is there anything exceptional that needs to be taken into consideration in that case, or?
Well, it's interesting. And again, going back to each project being very individualized.
Yes.
Yeah. But they're depending on the type of project. We may look at the parking situation. That came up, I know, on a recent large project. It's kind of like, okay, we're looking at the plan. We're kind of, and it was a loose. Again, they'd started the conversation with us pretty early on, but they really hadn't kind of gotten far enough where it's like, okay, this is going to be the parking lot. But it's like, well, this is going to be a really burgeoning, really busy area. You might need some more parking spots.
Gotcha.
That kind of thing. So, depending on the area, depending on, again, the venue, the type of venue, the type of property it's going to be, we might ask you questions about the parking or accessibility, things like that, and again, those questions will kind of arise based on the individual scope of the project.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Exactly. And that's good, because it's those things that maybe the newbie or the person that's doing the project might not have considered right from the beginning, and to have those that are kind of looking out for you and trying to guide you in the right directions. Well, you need to think about this. Have you considered that? And that way it all boils down to making the project more of a success,
right,
for them and for the for the person.
Exactly.
Rather than, okay, yeah, here's what you need and good luck and whatnot. So.
And Rachel, and you raise a really good point that I mentioned, not only for commercial properties or construction, but for flips as well. Like, our goal is to make sure that you succeed. Like, we want your project to be successful. Yeah. So when we're asking questions, and when it, perhaps might seem like we are, digging or asking, it's because we really, really do. Your success is our success, essentially. And so we are an extension of your team, basically. I mean, we are part of your project.
Exactly.
So, in that, we, that's kind of where those questions are born from that. Like, sometimes, you think you have everything covered, and it's like, I mean, I've seen it many times where people think they have got everything done, and then there'll be one question. It's like, oh, you know what? That's a good question. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And so I find that having more people that are on my side that are going to ask the right questions and put those things out there that are that maybe I missed, or maybe somebody else on my team missed. To me, that's the value of having this relationship.
Yes.
Behind you. It's like it's going to help. It's a benefit to everybody involved.
Exactly. I know that we have helped a lot of folks in both residential and commercial, and some of our clients that we've worked with, for example, up in Eaton.
Okay.
Which is technically West Alexandria. I would probably say it's a little northwest of Cincinnati, if you're not familiar with the area. But last year, the Spring Valley Bank had financed for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They had like a water waste management system out there, and it turned out to be a beautiful building. It was housing for both the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the water waste management for that county. And they did a wonderful job. But, the folks that come to us and ask us to, take a look at their projects, they knew what they wanted to do. And it was by Cook Construction, LLC, and they did a great job. Toured the facility myself, was able to see the ins and outs as far as the general business areas down to the personalized offices, even the break room.
That's really cool.
I mean, they did an amazing job. And I know that the employees there have probably been very happy over the last year, being there. And
I love that,
whatnot.
Rachel. And like you were saying, it really does kind of make us feel part of that. I mean, we are contributing to our community.
Well, it's almost like we're a partner.
Absolutely.
With them, because we're there to support you and to support your project, your endeavor. And like you said, you your success is our success. And obviously we're not going to lead you down the wrong path because it's going to affect, the whole
Absolutely.
project in general. And of course, nobody wants that. So
Right.
you do what you have to do to help steer people in the right direction, to help them consider things that they might not have considered,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a safety net or a backup to
Mm-hmm.
let them know what they could be doing as opposed to what they've already done. And it just makes for a better experience.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's see. Do we have any questions today? Let's see. We have, okay. Let's see. Kyle from Westchester asks, are there any square footage limitations with financing?
That's a good question. I know that we have covered some, and I know you can
Yes.
attest to some pretty large scale
Yes.
projects that we've done. I wouldn't say that there's a max or anything like that, but I can certainly find that out. But I mean, I don't think that we put any specifications on the size of the building.
It just depends on the property itself.
Right.
And it's not like, we only loan up to 50,000 square feet or something of that nature.
Right.
Obviously, just pulling a number out there. But I think that maybe Kyle, you've had some experiences where you have been turned down because of the project that you wanted to do, and it just didn't fit the criteria boxes. So,
Right.
Okay, let's see. What else we got? We have got, let's see. George over on the north side wants to know, with new construction, let's see if I'm wording this correctly, George. With new construction, how long does the process typically take from beginning to end? I guess that
For construction, okay, so we have the loan itself, it's a 12-month interest-only loan. And that is, to be sufficient time for the project. However, that's for, the majority of what we do. I won't say the majority of what we do, but again, I think this kind of goes back to the project. If, 12 months is sufficient time to build a house, you know. Depending on what you're building, hey, it could take longer than a year. But the loan itself, the term is 12 months. Again, we have the flexibility based on the type of project that you're working on specifically. We are able to make those adjustments.
Okay.
But I would use 12 months as a general guideline.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay. And let's see, we have CC from Forest Park would like to know, if you're building a residential, I guess she's wanting to know, does the financing cover things like foundation or, okay, I see what she's saying, the land development.
The land development. So it's what we cover are the hard costs. So it's the cost to build the property.
Gotcha.
So any of the pre-work or the land development, that I will verify this. I don't want to speak out of turn, but that would be on the owner of the land, exactly, to kind of make sure it's in build ready condition.
Okay.
And then we would cover the hard cost to build
to actually do the construction of the property.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, was there anything else that you'd like to add today that maybe we hadn't touched on?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, we wanted to take an interesting perspective from someone that is not as educated in the ways of, new construction, whether it's residential or commercial, and ask kind of the questions that maybe a newbie would ask, to kind of paint a picture of the expectations and the process that you go through as far as, the project itself, but also, securing the financing that you need to do the project. So you have to join us next Wednesday
Yes.
at noon again, where we'll be talking about some more issues
Yes.
regarding whether it's mixed use, whether it's rental properties. We have new subjects each week, and feel free to log in and join us, ask your questions live. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel with Spring Valley Bank for our Friday Flips of the Week and our live stream series, as well as RE Partners of Greater Cincinnati for a video streaming on some possible investment opportunities here in the Greater Cincinnati area. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Beshka, for joining us again today.
Awesome.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.